Hey guys, it's Jen from JCats Creations, and today I am going to be showing you how to do my ruffle flower technique that I just did about a week ago. I have all the mesh that I had ordered from craftoutlet.com that I wanted to use for this one. So just to show you quickly the colors that I plan to use today. They are all 10 by 10, so 10 inches by 10 yards. This first one is going to be the back layer. It is a moss green and gold two-tone. And I've already got all the mesh cut, so that's why the rolls are all cut. And then the next color, I'm going to be using just a regular red. None of these have the foil in it. These are all just the regular Deco mesh. The next one, I'm going to be using just a regular burgundy. And this one is a burgundy and gold two-tone. I like the two-tones a lot. You could do a lot of blending with those. And then for the center of it, this is a nice golden yellow color that I thought would be pretty. Now the color combination I actually kind of figured could go either way with fall or Christmas, both. So I figured, you know, it was a good one to do this time of year because I know a lot of us are already starting on our fall and Christmas wreaths. So I went with this color combination. Now I chose to use 5 different colors on this. If you were to just do all one color for the ruffles, you would need 2 rolls of the 10 by 10, and then the petals for the middle are the daisy petals. There's going to be 17 of those, so you would need another roll. So it's going to be 3 rolls, you know, if that's the way that you decide to go. For this one, I am using what I normally use for all my flowers. It is a 10-inch box wire wreath form. You have 4 rings on it, and it's flat. It's not the one where they're raised. And even though this has 4 rings, we're actually only going to be doing 3 rows of ruffles. Because of the way I'm going to attach them. I'll show you that. So you'll need one of those. I cut all my mesh with a mat and rotary cutter. So you'll need that. Pipe cleaners, of course. Scissors. Pretty much, scissors are just going to be to cut your pipe cleaners and the tails off of the daisy petals for the center. This is the plastic canvas. I've already got it cut into a 6-inch circle to fit into the middle of the frame. That's what I, excuse me, will be attaching all of the daisy petals to. If you don't have another frame, just have this already done. Do this first because it's going to be a lot harder when the wreath is already made. So I've got that, and then I have my piece of felt that I will be using to cover the back when it's all done. And all I do is just take a sheet of felt and trace around and cut it out. So I'll show you guys how I do that because I know people do ask me a lot, you know, if I cover the back, and if I do, how do I do it? So I will show you guys that. So since I've got everything already cut and ready to go, I'm just going to get right into it. Just let me get some of my stuff out of the way. And just so you guys know, this is actually, the finished size on this is a little bit smaller than normal. On the 10-inch frame, the finished size is about 20 inches. I wanted to create something that would give me the ability to offer smaller flowers for sale. Generally my flowers are about 26 inches. And I know not everyone either wants to pay the amount for a bigger wreath, or they just don't have the space, they don't want it. So I really liked coming up with this because it does allow me the opportunity to offer a smaller size. I also did the math, and the only thing I'm not quite sure are the daisy petals in the middle, but I did figure out if you wanted to recreate this on a 12 or even a 14-inch frame, because a 12-inch frame should give you about a 22-inch finished wreath, and a 14-inch frame should give you about a 24-inch finished wreath. So what I'm going to do is put all of that into the description box in case you guys want to try and make this, you know, to end up with a bigger size. So what I've cut are all 20-inch long pieces of mesh. So the 10-inch, and you're just going to cut them 20 inches long. The total amount for this wreath will be 35. So you'll need 35 20-inch pieces. And what I do, make it a little bit easier, I get the pipe cleaner. Now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use these two to attach it. If you just try to attach it to the outer ring, it's going to be really floppy, and there's really no way to make that any better. So I'm going to be going around these two, and I always start at a crossbar just because it's easier. So I already have that on there ready to go. And then I'm just going to ruffle up the mesh like you would normally. So that's just a normal ruffle like we would do for the regular ruffle method. And I just, try to make sure that both sides are as even as possible. So what I'm going to do that's a little different is I'm going to fold it up like that. And that's what will give us the ruffle effect for the whole wreath. So this back layer, I actually do 2 petals in each pipe cleaner tie. The rest of the wreath will only be 1. And I just kind of give it a little squish. So I'm just gonna, just enough to keep it there so it doesn't go anywhere, because now the color I'm going to use on top of it is going to be the red. And same thing, we're just going to ruffle it up. If you guys are familiar with my other flowers, the daisy petal and the single petal, you know that they can be kind of time consuming. And this one actually isn't, so it's great. I was very happy. I also wanted something that was a little bit easier to do. So like I said, just, trying to make sure it's even. Just ruffle it up a little bit there. Try to even it out. It won't matter a whole lot once it's on there. And then I open it back up and I put this layer on. And try to go nice and tight. I usually give it kind of a little smush. Make sure it's as tight as it can be. And then I just wrap it around. And then on the back side, just give it a couple twists to secure it. And then as you can see, it's solid. It's not flopping around back and forth. Like I said, if you just attached it to the outer ring, it would be very floppy. And even if you cover the back, it's really kind of hard to get rid of that. So I'm going to be doing 10 of these on the outer ring, because a 10-inch frame, this type of frame, has 5 crossbars. So each crossbar will get a ruffle, and then we're going to do one in between every one as well. So I'll just do another one to show you guys. Just like that. Well, bow tie ruffle, what we're used to. You know, when I first kind of came up with it the other day, I did have a hard time training my brain to kind of do this. So I kept trying to go at it, you know, the regular way, which is kind of backwards for what we're doing here. So I've gotten a little bit better at it now. And then the red. And it's nice, you really don't have to worry a whole lot about fray because, you know, you're kind of taking this edge and you're tucking it in. And then once they're all layered on each other, you know, you're not really going to see, you know, you may have to go in and clip out a few pieces here and there. But overall, you know, even though we've cut it, there really isn't a huge fray problem, which I thought was a nice bonus to it, since that's something we all seem to struggle with. Like before, you just bring it around, give it a few twists. And then now that I've started getting them on there, I just kind of push them up against each other. Sort of like the single petal where, you know, you're pushing them all up against each other. And that'll give it a nice poofy, ruffly look. So I've got those two on there already. So I'm going to finish the rest of it. Like I said, it's going to be 1 on every crossbar, so 5, and then 1 in the middle for each, so that's 10. So you will be using 20 of the petals just on this back ring. So I'm going to get this finished up, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have the first layer done. As you can see, it's nice and full already, and that's just with the outer layer. So now what I'm going to do is get started on the middle layer, and for this wreath I'm going to use the burgundy color. So what I'm going to do on here, same thing as the outer where I used 2 of the rings for the pipe cleaner. All I'm going to do is in between the ones on the outer layer is where I'm going to be attaching. That's going to be my placement, and you're just going to go around those 2 bars. You guys can see, I know there's a lot of red now. And that's just going to be my placement for the petals on this ring, is just to go in between all the ones on the outer ring. Now this layer is going to be just 1 20-inch piece in each pipe cleaner. So that's just going to go a little bit quicker. Like I said, overall, this is definitely a lot faster and easier than some of my other flowers. You know, I've only made a few of these so far, and it's about, like, I don't know, between 2 and 2.5 hours, which isn't bad. You know, like I said, you know, one of them, my other ones takes between 4 and 5 hours, the other one takes 6+. So, you know, to have something between 2 and 2.5 hours is great for me anyway. So like I said, you're just making the ruffle, fold it up like we did before, and then I'm just going to put it down into the pipe cleaner. And same as before, just going to wrap it around to the back. And then just move it a little bit. You see, this is what the back looks like from the first row. So this will just all be in between, going around. Get that so you can see it a little bit better. And that's the thing. I mean, they'll slide a little, but they're not going to flop. And then, you know, once you start getting more and more on, the mesh kind of sticks to itself, which a lot of times that's not what you want, but in this case it's helpful because it all just kind of holds itself together. So I'll do another one just so you guys can see again. So this time I'm going to go in between these two. And that's that. So just in between. And you just, same thing, just kind of squish them up next to each other. Look like that. So this ring, like I said, will also be 10. So it's just pretty much going to be 2 in every section since there's 5 sections. So I'm just going to finish up the rest. Remember, this is all just one petal, so it's a little bit easier. So I'm going to get that done and then I'll be back. Okay, so I finished the rest of the burgundy petals, and then I also went ahead and I did the center petals, which were the burgundy and gold. Now there's only 5 of those, and I just figured if I showed you guys up close you'd see. All I do is the centers. There's 5 of the crossbars. I just put 1 on each of the crossbars for the middle section. Once again, 20 inches. But only 5 petals there in the middle. So I got that all done. So I just wanted to show you guys a quick view of where we're at right now. This one is a little wonky and it's bothering me, but I'll mess with that more later. So at this point, I'll bring it back down and we're going to work on the daisy petals for the center. Lined up. you are not familiar with my daisy petals, I will do two just to show you quick. But I do have a whole tutorial for them. It's the daisy petal wreath. Just make sure that when you look it up, there is one that is a short version, one's a full version. Make sure you watch the full version one. The very first one I had done was just kind of quick, and it was the first video I ever did, so it's not the best, but it's up there. But just make sure you pick the one that says full tutorial for the daisy petal, and that will give you more in depth on how to make these and actually make a whole flower wreath out of them. But the basis of that is just going to be 10 by 10 squares now for this, and then you just take it and you fold it in half, so it's triangle. Bring one side down, the other side down, so it looks like that, and then I fold a pipe cleaner. This is only half a pipe cleaner. I cut them in half for this. And when you do secure it in the back, just make sure you're up higher than these shorter pieces. You make sure that you catch everything in there. And then you just give it a couple of twists. That's your petal. Now, because this is way too long to have attached to anything, I do have to cut them. I have said before, I know that there's a lot of waste with this, but I really haven't come up with anything better yet. So this is the point I usually cut, and then when I measure it, it's about 1/2 inch that I have after the pipe cleaner. And I have had people ask how big my petals actually are. And they usually come in between, you know, it's like almost 3.5 inches they are, just to give you an idea of the size. Now these are only single. In my other tutorial I do doubles, but this is only going to be a single petal, which means just one piece of mesh. So just to show you again. It's usually like kind of just as much as my thumb is enough. Just straighten it out a little. And like I said, usually like this pointy part here is a good place to cut. And equals, it's about 1/2 inch. Okay, so I've got the 6-inch plastic grid circle. Now when I measured the middle of that, you only have about 4 inches that you need to fill in the center. So when I start doing this, excuse me, I line it up, as you can see my 20 line, and I usually go about 1 inch in, and then when I go around in the circle I just stay about 1 inch, so I'm not filling, you know, the full 6 inches of it. So it'll be about 4 inches that we do actually cover in the middle of it. And also on my daisy petal tutorial, the way I did them is I faced them like this, where they're facing in. To kind of get a different look on this one for the center, I did them on an angle. So I'm just going to show you a couple on how I do that. The most painful part of this is just getting the pipe cleaner through the plastic grid. As you see, I just stick it through and then give it a few twists underneath. So it's sort of an angle, and it's nice with these because it's pipe cleaner, so if you need to kind of move them around a little, you know, they stand straight up, but you can always adjust them, so it doesn't have to be totally exact when you're placing them. And then for the next one, I just basically kind of overlap half of the first one, and I just kind of eyeball and you know, line it up with the one before it, so it kind of keeps them all in line. So you see they just kind of start having like a slight turn to them. So when they go, it'll kind of be a circle that they all overlap. I'll show you guys one more. Same thing, just kind of line up halfway over the next one. And you'll see, you know, your spacing underneath, it'll be about the same. As I said, you know, they'll be a little floppy, but, you know, because the pipe cleaner itself is flexible, so you could definitely kind of move them around to where you need them to be when it's all done. So I'm going to get the rest of these on, and then we'll come back and we'll attach the center. Okay, so I've got the center done. So all I did, as I showed you, I just went around in a swirl on the outer layer, and then I just did another smaller one on the inside. The outside I used 11 petals, and on the inside I used 6. And if it helps just to see the bottom, I'll just kind of go in a swirl. And then you're going to kind of get them all together. And it's going to be the same thing as the daisy petal wreath. I just kind of do that with it. And sure. So I'm just going to put it through the middle. I made sure to try and get all my pipe cleaners out of the way so that they don't really snag up on it as I'm getting it in there. So now I just kind of fluff them up a little bit, spread them out, put them where I want them. But I mean, it pretty much is what it is once it goes through. You know, it fills up the center very nicely. It just gives it a nice, you know, I think maybe this look would be more like a peony, but, you know, if you really don't want to go through making all the petals, the daisy petals, I think you could definitely probably use the plastic grid and just attach some more ruffles to it and just fill it in. And, you know, at that point, you know, you could probably call it a carnation. You know, so there's, you know, obviously a lot of different types of flowers that, you know, any of the types that we all make could look like. So at this point, since it's all centered up pretty good and I like it, I had forgotten in the beginning to mention zip ties. So I'll just show you here, all I do, and this is why I make it 6 inches, because it's just easier to attach. I usually use 4. And tight, but not too tight, because you can't actually go through the holes on the grid. So just make sure it's snug. I usually go a few holes in just to make sure I don't accidentally catch one that's not complete. One more. So that's nice and secure, it's not going to go anywhere. I just cut off the ends. Just kind of tuck them back a little bit. Okay, so I usually kind of just go and smooth around all the pipe cleaners as much as possible, even though I am going to be covering this up. It is nice to, you know, try not to have it all kind of lumpy bumpy, so I'll just go and kind of smooth them all back down as much as possible. And what I like to do, because I cover the whole back, so it's not that easy for people necessarily to hang them. So I just give them, I'm just going to pick a random place because it's a flower, so it doesn't really have an up or down. I just take a whole pipe cleaner and I just make a loop. I don't know, a little smaller, about that size. Twist it around to secure that. So it gives them something to use to hang it up with. And then the felt that I showed you in the beginning. I'm like super close. That's a little better. So all I do, I use a little push pin. So a little push pin. That's what I use to just make all the holes so I could stick the zip ties through. Use whatever you like. So I've already got my zip ties on. And I just attach it, just go through. The outer edge of the frame. Once again, it's nothing, you know, you don't have to super tight, just snug. And, you know, obviously the purpose is to hide all the ugly, and with all the pipe cleaners and stuff going on back there. You really don't want to run the risk of scratching up somebody's wall or door if you're selling them. It just kind of cleans it all up a little bit, makes it look a little nicer. Two more. So that's all. It's just, you know, like I said, snug, not super tight. And then once again, I just go around and I clip all the little ends off. And I won't do every single one now, but, you know, just because this little point itself is sharp, I just go and I tuck them all to the back like that. So it hides it and cleans it up. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I'm going to hang this up on the wall so we can get a full view of it. I wish I had a little better light in here right now. So, like I said, you know, I'll just kind of play around with the ruffles a little bit. Some of them stuck to each other a little bit, but overall, I'll see how the center is filled in. Real nice. You can't see anything. And, you know, once you have the back on it for any reason, you know, if you did have any spots that maybe you could see through a little bit, once you put something on the back that's going to, you know, cover all that, because there's not going to be any light coming through it anymore, so you won't see any of it. So that is the wreath fully done. And it's, you know, it's decent thick, but nothing crazy. And I think it comes out nice and full. I mean, if you wanted to try to do just one layer on the back, you could. You know, like I said, I've only made a handful, so I mean, there's probably a lot more different variations that could be done here. You guys know, as soon as I turn this off, I'm going to mess with this because this piece over here is driving me crazy. Okay. So, that's that. The ruffle flower. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always get me on my Facebook page, which is JCats Creations. I'm also on Instagram. That's under JCats Creations Wreaths, and I am JCats Creations on Pinterest as well. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.